Nation, where we are busy putting death out of business. I'm your host, Steel Archer, with Mr. Mallory 2020. You know, we all remember Mallory from other episodes of Detonation. It's fantastic to have you back. Before we cross over to the great gentleman, let's first thank our sponsor, who we will talk more about, definitely, and I'll tell you why in a sec. We'll thank Thrivous. The rules are in the description. The more you share the link around, the more Thrivous you are going to get. That goes from $5 all the way up to $160 worth of Thrivous. The rules are in the description. I also want to thank I Am Transhuman campaign. That's David Kelly. He's got new posts coming out all the time on the website. Go and check that out. All right, so Jason, it's good to see you. You're a Thrivous. You like Thrivous. Tell us all about the Thrivous experience. You've even got some there, right? You've got someone right there.
Yeah, I actually I picked some up, and Clarity and Surge, acute nootropic.
Hooray! Tell us about Clarity and Surge, and do you like them or what? I hope you like them.
Well, I'm trying them out, and yeah, Surge has about a couple coffees worth of caffeine in it. It definitely pops you up. And Clarity is 10,000% of your B vitamins or your B12, and more than 1,000% of a bunch of other things. So I've definitely felt an energy boost. I've been able to rattle off more words than I normally would. And yeah, so as far as it's my first experience with Thrivous, and I'm going to try it out for a month or so and give some feedback. And hopefully, if everything goes well, have something that's going to be able to help a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to see what you have to say, the reviews on Thrivous. Obviously, we love Thrivous here at Detonation. Open source nootropics and geoprotectors. That's Clarity and Surge. And remember, there's a lot more of them. And we've got the great campaign, $5 all the way up to $160 every time you share the link out and say, thanks, Thrivous. That's a great deal, the best deal on the internet. So, and there are open source recipes as well. So you can check for yourself all the recipes that go into making Thrivous. What a great product.
In there. It's supplements, not drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. All right, so you're here to talk about COVID-19. So before we talk about that, how have you been dealing? You know, you're running for president. What?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not doing Mallory 2020 anymore?
I was running for Congress, and I did not make it through my primary.
Oh, that's right.
It was something I had the potential of actually winning at some point. It's about 18% of congressional races are competitive in the United States, according to No Labels, an anti-corruption website. So I went into it knowing that it wasn't a very competitive election, and that I'm going up against a 26-year incumbent. As a nobody, but with better ideas, better solutions. So I felt compelled to put those things into the world, and was able to do so, although I did make it through the primary. It was very one-sided. The only person who had a candidate statement was the incumbent, for example. Those types of things. So, yeah. All that set aside, and that we're not a pure democracy, we're a democratic republic. I need to stand for things that I can stand up taller than, but have to deal with the to be able to.
You gave it a good shot, and we appreciate that. And you know, I loved all your ideas. I do remember a lot of the ideas, including the robot tax, which is a really a standout, and the hyperloop as well, a great standout. Sorry about the confusion on the. I'm not an American as well, so I try my best. But yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, what do you think about this COVID-19 idea in a sense of how the government is handling it, the stock market crashing? Just give us your thoughts from this point in time, before we talk about automation and some of the other impacts that COVID-19 is having on the world. How do you think the governments have been handling this scenario? Because this is a dramatic time in history. Do you think they've been handling it well?
I think that I believe that this process is going to enable us to handle it as best we can. I don't think that there's been as much preparation for what existing and pipeline technologies are going to make available to the general populace of the world. Uh, as far as being able to have processes in government to, similar to the CDC and other things like that, to be able to handle things like this type of outbreak, uh, I believe those are things that we ought to give funding to, if that makes sense. So as some, we're draining the swamp and whatnot, which I definitely agree with. And as far as what parts of that swamp we're draining, things that are involved in, biotechnology and the ability to survive a biotech revolution, that's a fail-safe that I'd like to have as a citizen here in the States.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely. This emerging technology front is it's still evolving. It's still evolving even as people go home and work because it's a higher intellectual field. I mean, it's a higher. It's not the service industry. It's not hospitality. It's something above, and so those industries are still rolling on even as people go to their homes and do work from home. So, you know, this is the time now to really think about the the ethical implications of biotechnology and the philosophical implications of biotechnology and where that technology is taking us. I think this is a good time to start to really think about that. Absolutely. How about in your local area? What has happened with you? Have you been locked down? What's happened there? What's been the last week or two of this cascading effects of COVID-19?
yeah, most people are, respecting the request. It's not a mandate, or I think it might now be. I'm not sure. In some areas, it is, like New York. Here in Sacramento, it was just a suggestion that most people have done, which is to stay at home. When I go out, I wear gloves, a face mask, and eye protection, as well as a long sleeve shirt, pants not shorts, and a hat. You know what I mean? Don't let anything rest on your skin. And then when you get home, take those things off and throw them in the wash. And that's a way of protecting. It has changed the way people are doing things. A lot of people are without a job now. A lot of people are, in many industries, it's preventing commerce. So yeah, I think it's catalyzing the effects that we are going to see with automation. In that, like, if you have a warehouse with a bunch of people that have to stay at home, they're not moving things around that warehouse. But if you have Kiva robotic warehousing system, which Amazon, I believe, acquired some time ago, well, your warehouse is fully operational. We're still getting food to people without contaminating it by some guy in a warehouse, then contaminating everyone that he ships anything out to. So some of the benefits of automation are being shown, but it's also showing that we don't really need people to do all these jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the impact on technology that this has had. Because it's how to explain it? It's shone a light on the future. There was a lot of geopolitical things that we were talking about, technology things we were talking about that were going to happen, a lot of social changes and social engineering that was always just around the corner was going to happen. It was going to happen in line with the natural progression of demographics and larger political maneuvers and a whole bunch of input factors into society. And all of a sudden, this black swan event comes out of nowhere, and it accelerates everything into an incredible pace. And automation is something, the automation apocalypse, as some people call it, or the automation innovation, in some respects, is something that was always going to happen. And you can see now which jobs are exposed to that automation? Hospitality, for example, is a job set that it needs to exist. But it's not something that's in the core component of civilization, so to speak. It's coffee shops, restaurants. We don't need these things to survive. Right now, what is functioning is exactly what we need to survive. That's retail, that's car servicing. Around here, it's warehousing. They've shut everything not essential down. The essential services are still going on. Electricians are still doing work. Construction is still going on to a minor degree. But everything else that could be automated in the future or was going to be automated is sitting now offline because that human capital has moved out of those jobs and into their houses. And it shows you where and what was going to be automated in the future anyway. And, we were slowly, the public was slowly being introduced to it. For example, at McDonald's, you go in and there's the automated cash registrar and you pick your own meal and you do your own payments and everything like that. Or the automation in the supermarket where you go in and you purchase your own food. You go into the store, you go to the machine, you sort out your own groceries, you pay for it yourself. That's a job lost, but it's also jobs gained on the other side, in the innovation side. What do you think about the effects of automation and how you see it as society is now all sitting at home? What do you see there?
First, I'd like to cite Mallory2020.com, which anyone's able to go to and see a lot more explanation on this than I can give in the next couple minutes. But I think that technology is going to free people from having to do so many jobs, that capitalism as we know it in the United States isn't going to be the best form of capitalism that we could have. It's not going to produce the best economy. It's not going to work the same. Basically, when we're able to replace, a quarter of the workforce, anything that's not like human to human based, creativity based in some respects, or managerial, these types of things are still going to be people's jobs. But when we're able to when it's better even to not have humans interacting with something that's going to get you sick in a distribution line or something like that, it's catalyzing those effects and making it something that we can really observe as there's pros and cons, right? There's an adaptation that needs to happen as we remove way more jobs from the economy than we are creating, right? It's not like anyone saying, oh, gee, I can't deal with all these job offers. It's like when we're in that situation, then it's like, okay, that's a let's put that as the pros and cons and balance of what's going on with people. There are jobs out there, it's not like you can't start a business in these types of things. But I believe the sharing of automation as a tool is going to determine whether we have a middle class post-automation. So what I stated in that congressional campaign, which I put in that science fiction book a decade ago, every citizen has the right to one equal share of the automated labor force, an equal vote for what it does or doesn't do, and a fair share of what's produced as a whole. That can balance all those things. That can make it so, for one, it's not just profitability dictating the actions of, 10 times more workforce than all of humanity combined. Instead, it's humanity. And we have, essentially like a democracy for the usage of automated labor and being able to adjust labor rates and things like that for automation. We'd have the ability to even use automation for ourselves at a startup business and create new businesses, create new jobs, create a middle class. The ability to share the tools of automation is going to be determinant for a middle class having access to the means of production.
Yeah, yeah, it's this. It's the definition of labor is changing, and that's I think that's difference the difference between capitalist and communist ideas of the past of forever ago. These ideas are now changing because of the automation of labor, and not in an insignificant way. Not textiles are moving to a factory and there's all these different components. It's moving in a fundamental new way. For example, uh, a way I can sort of explain it in not the best way, but for example, in the old days you had to print money. You had to actually get a printing press and actually print the cash itself. Now it's just digital and it's just electrons, and you just move those electrons over. I mean, the concept is the same. You're still printing money essentially, but the whole notion of how it is created is completely changed. And I think that's the same thing with this new world of labor, this new world of automation. It's actually now a different concept than those other concepts of capital formation and labor. The input of labor that Karl Marx and Adam Smith used to argue over. I think we've moved into a post world, a post econ world in a way. And I think this is right. And I love this idea. When we had that whole discussion on the automation tax, robot tax, essentially, I love this idea. I think this idea is what you need to really shake up everything. Because because the other thing is the labor input by the automation is so much more efficient and so much more powerful that humans just can't compete. Even as a collective, we just can't compete with the new innovations that are coming down the road. And so we all do need a say, and we all do need to own a share of that force, because it's a force multiplier. In a huge, unspeakable way, and we will be left behind if we don't embrace something along those lines. And I like, and it goes back to what you were saying. You need a new department. You need a new department to manage this in the United States, or a subcategory of a department to help to manage this new transition. I forget which department that you wanted that in, but.
Yeah, I was suggesting a Department of Automated Labor to be able to distinguish a unit amount of automated labor, and then be able to apply an hourly rate to that, so as to have access as small businesses to automated labor through an hourly rate rather than a large fixed cost up front, and furthermore be able to take a percentage of that hourly rate as the robot tax. That's the income tax for robots. And that would be something that you could adjust the same way you could adjust interest rates. You'd be able to adjust the hourly rate, as well as the percentage of that hourly rate going to fund a social service like a UBI, going to fund whatever else an income tax that no longer exists from a human went to fund in the past. I think that the pivotal technology. Thank you. It is.
Beautiful.
I think the pivotal technology for what you're saying in regards to money not needing to be, this is a piece of paper that we're writing that we're holding gold for you in Fort Knox. It's called a U.S. dollar. Going from that to going to something that is 100% digital, not commodity based. Just based on the pivotal technology that enables it being a blockchain form of the internet, a form of the internet that is never erasable. It has the dimension of time going across it, and you can't go back and delete something in the past. You can only show that you were deleting that file in the present time and from then on.
Yeah.
So being able to do that, you can have a legitimate record, not just what's on your screen at that moment, but a legitimate record for the entire internet, for the entire currency, for whatever it might be. and that's the end of privacy, but it's the enablement of digital currency. And that's something. It's an idea that's being kicked around beyond coins and things like that. But that so the idea of being able to issue a dollar that has more than a serial number on it, but that's a digital dollar. That's a sticky situation in the United States. It's something that, yay, we're all getting money. Yay. But now your money is completely tracking you, rather than I have cash and I have the freedom and liberty to be under surveillance or not, with my spending, with my location, et cetera, et cetera. So what freedom and liberty are in the United States is going to be very tested by the the end of privacy through the initiation of nationalized digital currency.
Who owns your money? Do you own your money, or does your money own you? And I think that's what it comes down to. You primarily, I would like to think that we, would own our own money and could distribute our own money and do what we want with our money. But it seems like, yes, it would eliminate a lot of corruption. So maybe it should just be for politicians who use this sort of coin, but they would legislate everyone to use it anyway. But but yeah, who owns your money? Do you own your money, or does your money own you? And I think that's the sort of question that we really have to grapple with at that point, because it's a great idea. It's a great way to eliminate a lot of corruption, which I'm excited about. But
Yeah,
the
I think
social credit system side of it, and the tracking, and the loss of personal freedoms and liberties, that's another side. And how do you balance that? Well, in the current era, we've kind of balanced that by having heavy digital plus cash. And it's okay, because the plus cash always exists. But if we remove the plus cash, you remove any any of those additional liberties that you might have. And some people might say, well, you're going to eliminate underworld crime and all this sort of stuff. Not really. It's not. Then the underworld crime will continue till the end of time. I don't think that's a good argument for that sort of stuff. I think I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that the physical world is the best firewall we have against artificial intelligence gone awry. So the ability to have that is something that might become a constitutional argument in the United States. But the ability to have easy to use money is also, something that we all want. So how that balances out, I'm not sure how it's going to play out. But yeah, I don't think things like Bitcoin are as silently encrypted as they are commonly understood to be. Although they're encrypted networks, it's not like a retail computer is going to crack it, but it's not to say that a quantum computer can't object all of Bitcoin.
Yeah, that is the big thing. When will what is the capacity and capability of quantum computing and on the blockchain, on Bitcoins, and on the crypto market? It's going to be an interesting thing to see. All right, let's talk about that's automation. So, is there anything else to finish up on automation with COVID-19 catalyzing the effects of automation, exposing the world to what's coming down the road for automation? We've seen it. This is the new world now. It's here. It might start to self-repair, but everything will be we're front running into the future now. Is there anything else you wanted to say on automation and COVID-19?
Just that it is what's going to survive in regards to businesses that don't have human employees that are still
Yeah.
operational. So it's exemplifying some of the strengths of automation and how we adapt to the replacing and obsolescence of human labor is truly the question we have as right now. And what I have stated, which did not make it through the primaries, I believe is still the best solution going.
A fully automated society. The big worry I have, and it's not the worst of worries, but it is a worry. Is we have to really set up our defense shields against something like a solar flare or a natural disaster that would wipe out the electricity grid or some related grid or something like that, and would bring the civilization to a halt. Because at least with a mix of policies, which is kind of what we have today, we have a mix of automation and truck drivers who are actually, who sit behind the wheel of a truck, not just automated trucks. At least with a mix, the society can still function. If we went fully automation, 100% hypothetically, and a character and a type event, a solar flare, I mean, that might bring everything to an absolute standstill, and that would be horrific as well. So, just before we move on to this Health Facts app, is there anything you wanted to say about that? Because do you advocate for 100% automation, or do you think a mixed policy, or what do you say to those sort of the dramatic circumstances that would lead to the disruptions in automation?
I would, anyone that's wants pure 100% automation and 100% digital currency, I would forward to that episode of Rick and Morty where they removed all value to the digital currency and the entire planet had no money anymore, and the amount of chaos that can have. You got to take anything digital with a grain of salt. So I think
it's like anything. You can't eat too much cake. You can't just live off cake. It's the same as anything. You got to be sensible in this. And I agree. There's a huge market. There's a huge wave of innovation and automation coming. But again, you got to do it within reason. We've just learned, for example, you can't put all your eggs in the supply chain in China, because if one place called China shuts down, you're very exposed. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to rush towards automation to 100%, because that, again, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. It's never a good idea to do. You always want a bit of a mix, and I totally agree with that. So very smart. But again, you got to do it along with something what you're talking about with these new departments and new innovative ideas to help the process along, and to give people an equitable share to something like a UBI off the productivity that this can really cause in the economy. Beautiful points. So you wanted to talk about Health Facts app and how it should be considered part of national security. This is to do with COVID-19. What is the Health Facts app for us in Australia who don't have that? We have our own type of Health Facts app. And why would it be considered part of a national security?
Well, it's something that does not exist, but it's something that I was proposing in that congressional race as a solution to healthcare for all, which would essentially only cost the maintenance of an app and a database, rather than trying to rewrite all of the rules of all of the insurance policies and all those things. So it's something that can be produced quickly and functionally much sooner. And I'm interested to know what you have there in Australia that would be similar. But what I'm suggesting with Health Facts app is a place to be able to hold a comprehensive medical record. Even if you've been to multiple hospitals, you could have all of those different records in the same place. So a patient could take that into the doctor, and the doctor could have the patient's comprehensive record. Moreover, that record, rather than putting, a few words into a search bar on Google, if you're using that entire record as a search criteria to find correlations for anything else. So if you have a person's entire, healthcare record, what are they likely to have problems with in the future? What could that be, a premonition of, or show that this is most likely going to be an issue in the future, be it genetically, be it based on something that happened. If you had something happen when you were young, and now as you get older, you're likely to have these types of problems. That's something we'd be able to tell through a health facts app, and be able to have preventative care, not just going into a hospital, going in to see the doctor, and really just be getting put through a ringer of what they can bill.
Yeah, yeah, and you have a disgusting system there in the United States. The with your healthcare, it's a cronyist. It's disgusting. People die on the street all the time. But no, we have this. It's a myhealthrecord.gov. I can actually bring this up on screen for you here, so you can have a quick look at this. So this is myhealthrecord.gov. Essentially, what it is it's exactly what you're saying. Your health information securely in one place for you and your family or healthcare professionals. Access to your record is in your control. Find out how. 22.6 My Health Records, 1.6 billion documents. So you log in, control access, manage information, what information, start using your record, and it's controlled by the government essentially on a secure server, so they say. A few people we can. I'm not sure if this will work.
My Health Record is an online summary of your key health information. You can control which healthcare organisations can view your health information, including clinical documents. You can also remove your own documents. By default, documents in your My Health Record are set to General Access. You can change the level of access through the Documents tab. Find the record you wish to manage, for example, your clinical records. Click View All Clinical Records. Now click on a document type, such as Diagnostic Imaging Reports. You will now see a list of all your diagnostic imaging reports. Click on the Manage Access link next to your document. This is where you can set your document.
So essentially that.
Yeah, so we are trialing something like that here in Australia. So you basically you have pretty much rights over this and who can access it and what, but it's aggregated pretty much in a government server. Now, I don't know if they'll collateralize it or they'll sell it or what, but I don't think so. We live in a pretty equitable society. But in America, I'm sure they would do something like that. These financial guys. But
it's not, the healthcare industry is not always a friend.
Yeah, we live in a completely different country to you. But that's essentially what you're talking about. And mainly, the big conversations we had here in Australia about this, the three big things were privacy. Obviously, people weren't too concerned about privacy. We do have a different approach to what we give our government in Australia than Americans do. Americans have much more liberty-based, individualistic attitude and are much more wary of handing things to government, even though they have overbloated government. But privacy was a bit of a factor. Security was a huge factor. Security was a massive factor. A lot of people were pretty scared about security because if all your health records are on this server and someone does hack them, that's game over, not just for you, but potentially for the whole country. Imagine if somebody could hack the whole country's worth of My Health Records. That would be just devastating. So that was a huge argument. And who and what...
I think that same thing might be part of the reason why some countries are not putting out all of the COVID information in regards to cases in a timely manner, because they don't want to share some of that information.
Yeah.
Who's permeated by what is not something you want to tell a potential bio attacker.
Yes. This is a really good point. And the other big conversation was sharing between departments. So obviously this is a myhealth.gov idea, But a lot of people were saying, I'm worried that the government will share it around to the tax department or to, well, the any other department that they have, and people were worried about that because for multitudes of reasons, you can pick your different reasons as you span out to the different department. But that was the three big concerns: privacy, security, and intergovernmental sharing were the three big topics. And they still went ahead and they still created this, and doctors and different people can access this, and all your health records are there. My health records are there. You had to opt out, and not many people did. As you see, 22 million people are on that, and we only have a population of, let's say, 25 million. So not many people opted out. So yeah, what do you think of that?
I think it's exactly what the United States ought to be doing. I was suggesting it as a phone app, whether it be a website that you log into regardless. I mean, however you want to do it. Basically, the user interface and the database to produce that is going to produce results for far less money. It's a much better return on investment for the U.S. tax dollar. But unfortunately, we're dealing with the most expensive healthcare, highly infiltrated by monetary influence rather than health results as an outcome. It's supposedly you can get the best care in the world here, but not in reality.
Yeah, not for the average person. If you've got money, and it's like everything in America, there's a big divide between rich and poor, and it's kind of like that movie. Have you ever seen that movie In Time? Is it called In Time? Where it's the immortal movie, and they have your time determines the amount of money you have essentially and how long you live. It's kind of like that in America. If you have more money and wealth, you're going to live for a longer period of time, better health, and if you're not, you're going to be a peasant walking around with no shoes on the outskirts of town. That's kind of how America is going, and this COVID-19 thing has exacerbated that. So absolutely. So great idea, Health Facts app. So I would encourage people to look at Estonia as well, and a whole bunch of other smaller countries, including Australia, which is a mid-tier country that has adapted something like this. Very, very interesting here, and we have more shows on that too.
Cool.
Yeah. Part of national security, so this COVID, and how making the economy of health of political power is immoral and corrupt. So let's quickly, if you wanted to finish up on the health app, or otherwise I'm going to ask you about banks.
Let's talk about banks.
All right. So, you participated in some protests or some sort of what would you say? How would you describe your relationship with banks in the last couple of years, Jason Mallory?
I keep my money there.
Yeah. Do you think that the way the current banking system is being run is fair and equitable to the U.S. citizen?
I think the banking system is going through a transition and adaptation to new technology currently. So as we're looking at gold turning into crypto, those types of things, and nationalized versus commodity-based currencies, and currencies that have, in the United States, we have FDIC insurance, which is basically if you have a bank account, which can be frozen by the SEC, by the Securities and Exchange Commission. It can also be insured with FDIC insurance for up to $100,000, I think it is, per account. So even if the bank goes bust, you still have $100,000 in your account. If you had $100,000 going into it, the bank went bankrupt. So how those types of things play out, and how hopefully public view for long-term thinking and enablement for access to those long-term stabilizing strategies are able to take precedence, so that we can still have strong currencies, strong economies, stable world, and be able to move forward in ways that are really good. I think that go ahead.
Staying on the COVID-19 idea, do you think that we've seen the stock market drop a little bit, a lot, in the last couple of days? Do you think that there might be some sort of do you think the unemployment rate is going to rise in the United States in the wake of this COVID-19 lockdown? Do you think that job losses are going to lead to an unemployment rise?
Certainly. I think it's going to go from, what was it, like 3.5% to probably 25%. And I think that the reason it's jumping that much, in reality, it's not that number of people. But when you're basing your unemployment rate on pretty much how many people are collecting unemployment, rather than how many people are not the mere reflection of the labor participation rate, then how it's defined is different. So a bunch more people are applying for unemployment insurance. Therefore, the unemployment rate's going to skyrocket. So yeah, is that currently an accurate reflection at 3.5% or whatever? And will it be an accurate 1-2 months from now, when all those unemployment checks have gone out and they've accounted for all of that? I don't really know, but I know a lot of people are not going to work. So yeah, the unemployment rate's sky high.
Yeah, and with that, do you think that there's an opportunity in there to innovate for this? Because like, we live in the 21st century, and if there is going to be a rise in unemployment, and these people are staying at home, do you think that there might be a way to give these people something productive to do while they stay at home? For example, and this is just an example, Chairman Gennady came up with this idea to have phone apps where you can essentially play games. For example, this COVID-19 thing, you play the game to try and fix, the proteins and just to kill the virus. If you came up with phone apps phone app games to fix global solutions, and create solutions to global issues and global problems while you earn some sort of credit, do you think this is a good idea? Because it would solve global solutions while people have no work. Do you think that's something like that, or some other innovation to keep these people occupied while they're unemployed?
Yeah, I think I think the root technology would be distributed batch processing, which is something that's enabled more powerful computers than any single computer by having basically distributed processing. So you've got, a million different phones, none of which are stronger than a supercomputer, but a million of them together working in collaboration is more powerful, right? So distributed processing and distributed batch processing on a single issue, that has been used. It's been used in science. It's been used to map the stars in many ways. And I think that's awesome if we can bring human decision making into any of those processes, so that humans don't lose their voice among the abilities of digital processing. I think that's great. So really what humanity has post automation, post all these things, we're a moral filtration system, right? That's human thinking instead of logic and in computational thinking. So the ability to do that in a gamification of batch processing that humans can basically be playing with an AI that's saying, do the people like it or not, type of questions, or is this something that what do the humans think, right? So long as that AI never gets tired of what we think, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. We think in so many crazy ways, but you can sort of work out human thinking in a way. It is, but again, with the brain is a complicated organ, probably the most complicated organ in the known universe, or the most complex object in the known universe, and it's kind of hard to think how we think. So an AI may or may not get bored, depending how smart it is or how intuitive it is. But yes, yeah, no, this is really interesting. And the thing is, like with Sony and Xbox and some of these other gaming consoles and the rise of PC gaming as well, you could stimulate some of these solution-driven processes into a fun and innovative way that would generate people currency so they can etch a living out, because you don't need that. I mean, we've lived in such a state of semi-luxury since the 50s. I mean, the innovation in the global order has been so huge, but really, if you boil it down, we don't need that much to live as humans. We need food, water, shelter, sanitation, hygiene, exercise. I mean,
A pod matrix with that thing in the back of your head.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Why not? Why not? Send the people. Let's go. I'm going. I'll come with you. Let's go.
I think it's I think it's an interesting thing, and as we're looking at basically remonetizing society. I looked at doing this with the music industry when Napster happened, and I built, spent a lot of time on something that didn't get very far off the ground. But yeah, how to remonetize music. If we're looking at how to remonetize physical actions from humans, right? Or a lot of our decision-making actions, so many of the jobs that could be automated or that will be automated, or that should be automated.
Yeah.
So as we look at those kind of tiers of how automation hits different countries, societies, legal systems and stuff, if we can maintain a merit-based currency, we can get around all of it would be great if, that candidate could afford what that candidate could afford, for example, or if that student could get into that school that they don't have the money to go to. Those types of problems. So to me, it's the same issues unless we're looking at being able to determine merit in a currency fashion.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the problems with money is that it's not the best determinator of merit. I mean, you can get some rich people, especially if it's a self-made millionaire or billionaire, they're probably smart, okay, but their children might not be. But their children might be given access to some of the best universities or best education outcomes, but they're, dare I say it, not worth it. When they're taking up a space which could be occupied by someone who doesn't have as much wealth or money or credit, they're taking up that space and for someone who might arguably be better. And that's been the story of the last, 2,000 years more. I don't know. It's and we need to work on that system. There are plenty of smart people out there, but it's not a meritocracy in that way. That's a different calculation of meritocracy where it's based on value of an external being money, and a resource a resource, an external resource that can access these goods and services, and it is a shame. But the internet is a great leveler. The internet has been the great leveler. It's been the great leveler in communication, mass distribution of information, media, money, the idea of money. It's educated people on the idea of money. It's educated it's the great leveler. And we live in a new world now where the innovations that you're talking about, especially in education, or what Chairman Gennady is talking about in the reorientation of human labor in solutions generation, these things need to be considered, and they need to be considered really fast. I'm talking about the next few months, as we go further and further and deeper into this, and the COVID-19 locking everyone in their houses. This is a great time for some sort of innovation on that level. Khan Academy style learning, but in a fun, intuitive way that can generate you some form of gift and appreciation outside in a meritocratic form. I'm not sure, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. So Burning Man has a gifting economy. You're not allowed to use money. It's looked down upon. And it's not a barter system. It's not I'll trade you this for that. It's literally just give stuff. And the serendipity of the world changes. And if you need something, it's there for you. It's a if you could make karma a credit score, it would happen at that place in that type of economy. So I think that there are things that are, it's also 1 week,
yeah,
right? And people go with abundance, and they leave, carrying their trash with them. But as far as being able to have something that's sustainable, looking at why someone has money, right? Looking at why someone is holding the means to production or holding the enablement of ability and those types of things, and having that be something that's producing a digital serendipity, those types of things. That's really the race for AI, right?
Yes.
That's without like creating too much, plots for movies or whatever. It's how do you keep a society running right based in merit and based in reason, rather than based in profitability or based in financial might making right. While that's a skeleton of society, while that's something that you might want to be able to bring the hammer down with, it also isn't the motivating purpose, and it isn't humanity expressing its full potential.
Yes. Yeah, the United States Transhumanist-Party should make an app where they have, just a simple app where it's a game, and, you've got to somehow progress along the levels to get to a positive future based on technological progress and science and innovation and stuff. And there should be a character, and he passes challenges along the way. Neo-Luddites come left and right, and it could be innovative in the way that I'm not sure. This is cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, these guys, Peter Thiel. They have the resources to sort of to really spur this sorts of innovation. I was actually just reading in the news. Peter Thiel is getting it big on tier 1 blockchain. Bitcoin technology now. So that's going to be interesting. These guys have the resources to do this sort of frontier innovation. But yeah, it's really, really cool. All right. Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Jason? We've covered a lot. You're always fascinating to talk to.
Thank you.
So many amazing things always coming out. I forget where you're from. Where are you from again?
I'm living in Sacramento currently.
Sacramento. Always so many good things coming out of Sacramento. You know, so many amazing innovations, and your automation tax is that's something I want to see discussed in Congress. That's Senate.
Yes.
That's something I want to see as a mainstream topic, not just UBI. UBI is only one part of this larger discussion about the automation tax and the innovative ideas you have on that, because you know the problem with helicopter money and the UBI is it really scares me in the fact of the currency essentially dying, the USD, and it's more feels like the bread and circuses at the end of time, whereas what you're talking about is actually something more sustainable, and it's more sustainable well into a hyper advanced future, because it grows and it's more sustainable. It's much more sustainable. It's innovative, and there's a fiduciary trust there. There's a resilience to the idea, as opposed to just giving money away perpetually and dropping it out of helicopters, Milton Friedman style.
Yeah, I'll give you $1,000 to vote for me.
Yeah.
I mean, wait.
Yeah.
Instead of spending what's going to be able to get someone votes on a partial fix, if we have a much more comprehensive fix through the policy that I'm suggesting, we cannot spend the UBI card without the equivalent legislation to have a sustainable UBI, as well as national security on what's street legal for automation, as well as a vote for what automation is or is not doing, rather than being purely beholden to profitability. These types of things should definitely be considered. And the problem that I have is not in the science or logic or reason of a policy. It's in the monetary requirement for the amplification of my voice.
Yeah.
When you contact everybody at a newspaper and you're on a ballot where that newspaper is, and the only contact you receive back is an advertisement to purchase advertising space, what's determining the outcome of that election?
Womp.
Are the papers dead?
It's stupid. It's annoying. It's stupid. But you're always welcome here to Dead Nation. I mean, always. But I can just see this going in so many ways. Because obviously you'd have domestic control, but there'd be foreign automation influences, and there'd be a market. And you could loan and sell each other. Your automation reserves and stuff like this. It could be. It's huge. It's huge. It just goes on and on and on. It's a natural process there. Be like a forex market for automation reserves, which would be, and you could store up them up for times, good times, bad times.
Yeah, I mean, consider
amazing.
Consider rather than paying taxes to someone who's going to supposedly go set up the ability to have a base on the moon or something.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of like, oh, here's my money, I'm going to trust you to go accomplish that in some actually effective way.
Yeah.
No, I'm attributing my vote of my automated labor to work in physical resource to produce that, not to produce bureaucracy and the draining of the effect, right? That's why Donald Trump was elected in a lot of ways, because he's there to drain the swamp, right? He's there to drain the bureaucrats from polluting the effectiveness of government. When you're spending more on social service workers than you're spending on social services to the people that need them, those types of situations, draining of the swamp, sure. So if instead of, while we would have a system where we're electing our representatives, there's still taxes, et cetera, but there's also the physical resource that we have a vote for, a democracy 2.0, right?
Yes.
Just like how your vote, your money is your vote, your labor is your vote. Well, when those two things are made obsolete, but there's still lots of labor getting done. In fact, many multiplications of all of humanity's ability to do labor, the ability to control a piece of that with a vote and attribute it to what you as a human being, as a moral filtration system, would like the growth pattern of humanity to be, that's something you could do. You could vote for your share of the automated workforce to work in the sciences. It could work for the environment. It could do national defense. It could do any of the things that you need it to do, but not.
And you know, you could reorientate those resources, linked up with something like Chairman Skinati's suggestion here with the phones or something. But like in this case of COVID-19, you could put a premium on sorting out the COVID-19 over other existential risks or other problems or smaller things. So you could shift the market incentives to say, well, we have a really big risk right now. It's called COVID-19. So the incentive structure moves over and people focus their energies or their automation reserves on sorting out that issue. And it doesn't distort the free market in any way. It's just putting a premium on something. You know, that happens all the time in a free market. So whatever. Well,
yeah. And while we're still on COVID-19, I'd like to give a shout out to a group that I'm part of. It's called the American Association of Precision Medicine. And there's a task force, doctors from many different countries, a lot of them from India. And India's, I've heard, has done very well with COVID, and in ways to basically be able to navigate this situation. I put a few ideas forward there that we don't have real science on yet. So two of the things that doctors don't have as tools currently, but that I think could actually be really, really useful. So when you have stuff in your lungs, you have a lung infection, right? If you had an infection on your skin, you'd put a cream on it. You'd put, you know what I mean? If you've got germs on your hands, you wash them, right? If you've got germs in your mouth, you use mouthwash and you swish it around. It kills 99.9% of viruses and whatnot, right? So if you have that on your lungs, if you took a spray bottle that that would normally have Windex in it or something, right? But you filled it with mouthwash and you inhaled that. Or if you took an asthma inhaler and you put antiseptic mouthwash in it and you inhaled it, if you are at a stage where you have difficulty breathing, you have lots of virus in your lungs that's multiplying and coming out of your mouth and infecting other people, if you could use mouthwash and a spray bottle for like $5 and actually prevent that kind of stuff from happening, I think that's worth maybe somebody getting the science on during this process, although it's not something that's necessarily a very expensive ventilator or drug in the health industry. But I think that's something that we ought to explore as a people.
Yeah, Sacramento strikes back again. This is great. Any solutions at this point to help ease the pain or fight off this virus, because this virus is really wreaking havoc on the world in a biblical way. I don't know. I don't understand it. But yeah, the sooner we can get this sorted out. So every innovative solution to avert the crisis is a great idea. So a mouth spray or some sort of spray down to the lungs.
Yeah, to be able to have basically, you could use mouthwash, whiskey, anything that's going to be able to kill a virus, alcohol, those types of things. To be able to produce something that's specifically for that is not an existing off-the-shelf product. And I think there's an opportunity for that right now. But I see that the application of some existing things for not what they're actually for, but to utilize that substance to kill the virus that it's actually made to do. Even though it's a different virus, it'll kill most of them. Yes. I think it's something worth looking into. Also, being able to put an antigen and therefore antibody producing lab in a shipping container and be able to send a shipping container to Wuhan instead of putting people there. So someone could literally walk up to it and just blow their nose into a booger receptacle. Whatever germs are actually in their boogers are bred, they're cultured, turned into antigen, then you kill them, and now you can inject that like the flu shot and have antibodies in your bloodstream, right? I'm not a doctor, but I understand that to be what's produced results in the past. So the ability to do that sort of thing and then be able to send a shipping container at the hearts of outbreaks, regardless of what country that container is coming from, we can globally combat pandemic that way.
Yeah, and I was thinking, as soon as this whole process started, I was just thinking about the Hyperloop idea and how, a Hyperloop would be a sterile environment. You just sterilize that thing before it goes into the tube, and then boom, and you can still continue to ship goods and services. You don't have to check trucks, and you don't have to wheel trucks across the whole thing, or the whole continent, because it would just be sterilized. It would just put in the tube and shot across America and come out at the other end. You can re-sterilize it if you're paranoid, and open it up, and it's there. It doesn't have. It's a two-step process. In, sterilize it, boom. Same thing. So,
I agree. So yeah, if we did a hyperloop from San Diego to the Gulf of Mexico instead of any other installation on the border, I believe it would be something that could benefit not just the neighboring countries, but all international shipping partners through, similar to what you're saying. Yeah, basically, if you're going through a misting of bleach on every shipping container, as it's about to go, in 6 hours from ocean to ocean, yeah, we're able to really, I don't know if it's not a firewall for a computer, but it's something, a
cleanser,
water wall,
some sort of sterilizer, or some sort of cleanser or sterilizer or something like that. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much. Any other gems I gotta hear from Sacramento? Anything else you got to tell me?
I don't know. Well, that I very much respect what you do, and that I think every pundit in the world should be looking up to you as an actual.
I just fall in line and follow the USTP, and that's where the future is, and it seems pretty obvious to me. People are waking up. People love what we're doing. The watch time on the videos are exploding. Every single video is, people are watching more and more hours of it. I just need 1,000 subscribers now, and I can actually monetize the channel, which is not much anyway, but it will be good. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I can still work in this office for now. We'll see how long that lasts until we get fully locked down. But the big reason that I enjoy doing what I do, it's not really because I'm special, but it's because I get to talk to people like you. I get to talk to doctors and philosophers and all these great people, and the audience enjoys that as well. And that's really the reason that this is so fun, because we're all learning together, we're all navigating problems and generating solutions together. And it's hard, but I think it's something that's an idea that's come, and I really thank you and appreciate your kind words there to help to encourage me to continue, because sometimes it's not as easy as it looks. It is a bit hard, and I thank you for that deeply, and I thank you for coming on the show and helping me as well. And even if I don't understand fully sometimes all these great ideas, or if I do, or if I don't, or whatever, other people will. This information goes out there, and other people do, and the community gets stronger. We get more connected, we get more integrated, and we get stronger as a community. And that's what I find really, really exciting, because we are the future, and we can assist the people out there who desperately need our ideas. They just don't know it yet. But that's okay. They'll figure it out.
Well, yeah. I guess until next time.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, I've got to thank a growing bunch of people. So Brett Elman, Dan Elton, David Shoemaker, thank you very much. Frank Martino, Future for Humanity Project, Chairman Gennady Stolярov, John Carrots, Mike B. DeVerde, superfan Mike DeVerde, and the Technocracy for all putting in small contributions to keep this show on the road since I lost my job. Thank you very much, everybody. And also, thank you all, and thank you very much too, sir, for watching Detonation and supporting us and throwing the link around. Thanks for Thrivous. Thanks for grabbing some Thrivous, and hopefully it keeps your brain popping. Those are good supplements, geoprotectors and nootropics. And that's Detonation, where we are busy putting death out of business. That's Jason Mallory 2020 coming from Sacramento.
All right.